Hey everyone, Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and today we're going to be talking about player reward and story reward versus a more mechanical reward, and as a player tip.
So, my name is Dave.
I'm Ryan.
Those guys.
Those guys.
Us.
Nate's always like, they know who I am. That's the important part.
I already said who I was.
Yeah. So we've had a bunch of you guys request us to do videos about player tips, because a lot of our stuff is world building or
DM centric or whatever.
Yeah.
So these are actually the harder videos for us, I think, because we're so far removed from being a new player. So you guys, if you're watching this video and you also want to see more player tips, feel free to tell us what kind of stuff you want us to discuss. And
things you struggle with or this or that.
Yeah, because I find that it'll be a lot easier for us to cover specific questions.
Yeah, and the less vague and more specific, the better.
But we figured, hey, you know what? We're going to do some player tips right now. Story rewards versus mechanical rewards. And this starts with the very beginning of your character.
Yes.
And the best way to accomplish this and make this happen is working with your DM.
Yeah. That's step one.
That's step one.
The more you're into it.
Session zero.
Yeah, the session zero, as we talked about in other videos. The more you're into it and the more you want to kind of assist the DM in describing your character and what the character has done previously before the start of the game, the more buy-in you're going to have from your DM into your character story, and the more you're going to have this buy-in to what the DM kind of wants to do, because he's going to work into players, and that's all comes from the background.
And like not just the mechanical background of I'm a sailor or this or
I'm
that.
a sailor and a first level fighter.
Yeah, but sort of a narrative of who your character was before the game started, and also too, you're only first level, so don't put in super epic stuff, but like his family, like where he's from.
Here we go. Perfect example.
Yeah.
You are working in a shop and you're trying to sell a parrot, right? And you never really wanted to sell parrots. You always wanted to be a lumberjack, right? This would be a perfect, in your background, getting your character involved, right? You have a job that you don't like doing, but there's a job you really want to do. And so you put that in your background. You talk to your GM about this. Be like, how can I not sell parrots, especially dead ones, and be a lumberjack instead?
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so, like maybe your character's uncle is like the Duke of some duchy or barony, and you let the GM know about that. Like, so give like tendrils of story that your GM can always pluck at, like, well, guess what? Bandits have beset your uncle's fiefdom. And now your character gets a letter that like he needs to go help his uncle solve this problem, and get maybe he's given some coin to go recruit some other people to help, or there's somebody else that like is tied into your background.
So one of the players becomes the plot hook,
right? Absolutely.
In this instance,
right?
I do that all the time. I use players generally from my sessions, from a session zero or discussions before the campaign starts. I will start pulling out things from the players to use as hooks. So, if you want your character to be more involved in the campaign, then you have to give your dungeon master more to work with. Yeah. And
tell them what kind of fish you are, what kind of bait you like.
Exactly. You need to, and a backstory is a good place to do this. Like, some people are going to write you 3 pages. And it's
whether you want them to or not.
Yeah. And some people will not even write 3 sentences.
Yeah.
You need to fall somewhere in the middle there, especially if you're new to gaming. You have to have a character that your dungeon master kind of understands, and then you also want to create at the same time create a character that you love. Like in theory, you're going to be playing this character a lot, and you're going to play him for a while,
provided he doesn't die.
So you want to try and make a character that you can fall in love with or be in love with from the beginning. And that should come from, it can come from mechanics, but it's going to be much stronger if it comes from the story elements of that character.
And so when you're writing out this little background or maybe things that your character wants to attain, like, and that's another thing too, you can create a wish list of things you want your character to achieve. Not the most boring thing you could put is like, oh, I want a frost brand or something like that, like a magical weapon or item. It's like, I mean, you could do that too with your GM, but more interesting is like, my character really aspires to have a noble title. or you know, marry into royalty.
If you're gonna go that route, right? The frost. I want to get a frostman. My character needs to have a frostman. You know what? Spruce it up a little bit. You know, our ancestral family weapon was lost in the Battle of Montatique Bay, and it is my life quest to recover that sword.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so that now it has meaning. It's tied to your character's background. It's tied to your family. It's tied to this battle that happened. It's tied to a place. Like you know, this gives you some player agency to that you've just thrown into the world. If your GM lets you, that he can just, you know, he can.
And now any rumor of that sword is going to have you into that story because you just sworn your life. I will not rest until I retrieve it. I'm kind of tired. I'm going to take a nap. Yeah.
This is really nice, and I'm tired of being wet outside when it's the monsoon season.
Yeah. But as soon as I wake up, as soon as I do, I will not rest until my sword is recovered.
Now, that sounded very elaborate, but you just threw that together with nothing.
Yeah.
But I would say if you're not into that whole creation of the whole thing, I like the yes and no game, which is basically where you say, hey, I'm going to ask your character a question. Like, well, how many family members do I have? Well, let's say I have 3. Well, what are they? Well, I have 3 sisters, and I'm the oldest. And then you say, well, are they all alive? Yes or no? If they're not all alive, well, which one's dead and why?
How
did someone?
He was really throwing me off. I'm like, when does it yes and no happen?
Yeah.
I realized that as I was talking too much, and I was like, I got to make this a yes or no.
The most elusive thing is there was no yes or no until the third series of questions.
It was a mystery. Yeah. So you have, well, you know, are my parents alive? Yes or no? Well, did they die of natural causes?
Yes
no. Yeah. Maybe. You know, what's the deal? Or maybe it's a mystery, you know, about someone's death in your family, or in something happened in your area. Maybe someone you knew or a friend of yours passed away from some kind of mysterious disease, and it's cropping up again.
And this is a good idea, because you could even go, okay, do I know any of the other players before the session starts? Yes or no?
Yeah.
And this can completely change the dynamics. You guys could have, you know, shared history with another player.
You could do you could pull out, if you're into Fiasco, you can pull out some like a module that seems kind of a scenario that seems kind of in line with the campaign you're going to be playing, and you could roll on the relationships and like randomly assign who knows each other how, and like all be interconnected in that way too.
Yeah,
if you want to go that deep.
Yeah, and it can be, you can also randomly roll for things that's the kind of another part of the yes or no thing, is if you randomly roll and you're like, I don't really want to have this kind of burning desire for revenge. Well, you already know that you don't want your character to have a burning desire for revenge, so you've already said no to that.
You've eliminated something.
You've eliminated something. So that's almost like answering it. Yeah. You're one step closer. So if you want to continue to randomly roll and say, yeah, I'll take that.
Right, or just pick something that appeals.
Yeah,
to
or
you.
then just say,
if you find yourself keep looking at something on the table, then you should just take that thing.
Yeah, like, I really want to roll a 2. Well, don't just roll 2, just take it.
Yeah,
whatever the 2 is.
Yeah, if it's interesting, grabs your attention, why not?
Yeah, I'm searching for my.
And you know what? As the player, just because you're a player doesn't mean you can't look into the DMG, and you can look at some of the motivations and quirks of NPCs, and like find something that either inspires you or just randomly roll there and pull that out. Like basically, you want to give your character, quirks, character flaws. You know, like what is he intensely interested in?
I think when I write like backgrounds and backstories and stuff, I think I usually intuitively, without really trying, write in like 1 to 3 relationships, something my character did, something my character wants to do.
Yeah.
And it's all centered around that. If you can come up with that, a couple relationships, something you've done, something you want to do, that's generally enough to get it started.
Yeah,
that's enough to build on.
And again, when you're first level, your character wasn't like a general to an army or something like that, unless it was like he was a noble and it was like a handed down title that he really didn't earn type of thing. Like, so also keep in mind the scale and scope. Like, you might have like won a local like tournament, like like they have games, jousting or whatever. You might have won like a local tournament, but you're not going to have defeated like armies at pre-first level. Like,
no, but an interesting background might be that you're a noble and you were giving the title of general, and you led an army to a crushing defeat.
Right. No, that's an interesting story because you got setbacks. You feel like you have to make amends for these things that you've done,
or maybe you try to hide it. And
right?
Like,
right,
no,
yeah.
that was somebody else.
No, totally. And you're covering up.
You're very famous in the wrong
infamous.
way.
Infamous. Yeah. Absolutely.
So with that, that concludes this player tip. Just try and flesh out your character a little bit. Don't go crazy. Don't make it to the point where
don't write a novel.
There's no room to expand. You want to leave the door open, but and this is more so for like the novice player that's just getting started, or someone that doesn't really have a direction to go in. My suggestion is something you've done, something you want to do. Jot down 2 relationships.
So, some either familial or friends or
that's
something.
my pro tip.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. So with that, you guys, you can put your tips down in the comments below while you're at it. Like, share, and subscribe.
You can patronize us in a good way over on Patreon.
You can also check out the articles over on nerdarchy.com.
Well, until next time,
stay nerdy.
Hey everyone, Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds.
Your DM.
Yeah, that's step 1.
That's step 1.
The more you're into
Session 0.
Yeah, the session 0, as we talked about in other videos. The more you're into it, and the more you want to kind of assist the DM in describing your character and what the character has done previously before the start of the game, the more buy-in you're going to have from your DM into your character story, and the more you're going to have
things you struggle with, or this or that.
Yeah, because I find it'll be a lot easier for us to cover specific questions.
Yeah, and the less vague and more specific, the better.
So, but we figured, hey, you know what? We're going to do some player tips right now. Story rewards versus mechanical rewards, and this starts at the very beginning of your character.
Yes.
And the best way to accomplish this and make this happen is working with your tips, because a lot of our stuff is world building or
DM centric or whatever.
Yeah.
So these are actually the harder videos for us, I think, because we're so far removed from being a new player. You guys, if you're watching this video and you also want to see more player tips, feel free to tell us, what kind of stuff you want us to discuss.
And today we're going to be talking about player reward and story reward versus a more mechanical reward as a player tip.
So, my name is Dave.
I'm Ryan.
Those guys.
Those guys.
Us.
Nate's always like, they know who I am. That's the important part.
I already said who I was.
Yeah. So we've had a bunch of you guys request us to do videos about player